think I've seen it already. Yeah, outside. Let's see. Oh, this is it. Oh my god, it's looking good. Oh yeah, we got lucky. Hey, what's up? I'm Alex and welcome back to a series of specialized rebuilds from the 80s. We started with the iconic 88 raw copper comp, and in the last video I talked about how rare of a find the 87 street stumper was. Well, this white 89 Stumpjumper Comp is probably in a similar category. You see, about a year ago I built one of my absolute dream bikes on this channel, the same 89 Stumpjumper Comp in the black and purple colorway. I had been looking for one of these for a couple of years, and during my search I came across a number of black frames. Some were too used, many were too small, but throughout my entire search I don't remember ever coming across one of these in white. And yes, my memory may play a role in that, but what I'm absolutely sure about is that I never saw one in a condition like this one. Generally speaking, white frames are quite tricky. If you have rusty spots and you apply rust converter, you get black spots on a white frame, so it's always going to be super obvious. White is also a color that does not work well at all for paint touch-ups, because the color underneath tends to shine through. So to make a restored white frame look really good is a challenge, unless of course you are lucky enough to get to start with one that is in a condition like this one. So let's take a closer look at this unicorn of a frame before we rebuild it as an MTBMX. Let's go. I'm not gonna go as far as to say this is the first rain that this frame is ever experiencing, but it was definitely kept dry for most of its life. The condition is amazing, not only of the frame but also of all the components. It is completely stock, just got some new tires and a replacement saddle along the way, but we still have all the original XT components on board, and I think it would be quite a shame if we didn't continue using those and include them in the new build. In fact, I think this bike is a really good example of how you can build something that is really unique and customized and still reuse a lot of the original components and preserve some of the bike's original DNA. Alright, so what's the plan? Well, when I rebuilt my black Stumpjumper, I went for a real sinister all black look. I custom laced a black wheel set, went for all black DRLX components, and just sprinkled in a few colored highlights to match the frame design. I was super happy with the end result, but of course I have made quite a few detail changes to the build since then, one of them being the saddle, where I integrated a taillight, and of course that meant putting the bike back in the work stand over and over again. I've also added a bunch more purple, and I'll show you what the bike now looks like at the end of this video, and I'll include some ride footage of both these Stumpjumpers in the end. One thing that hasn't changed is the centerpiece of my restomod last year, an oil slick BMX stem. And that inspired me to use a teal colored stem for the sister build. This time we're going for all white and lots of silver. But of course, before you can do the building, first you gotta do the cleaning. I am going to remove the cassette later, but I think we might as well get rid of some of this rough dirt while the cassette is still in place and the wheel is holding it for us. If you're new to the channel, you may not be aware of these steel wool cleaning pads yet. I'm a huge fan of them. They are an awesome tool, they're super helpful, and the proof is in the pudding. kind of gave myself extra work there. This is our parts now cleaned and disassembled for the most part. They still need to be polished before they can go back on the bike, but we also need to introduce a few new components or vintage components that will be added to this build. We have a set of XT V-brakes and some customized shiny brake levers. There actually are very few vintage all-silver brake levers out there. They usually were combined with at least some black parts. So I'm super happy that I found this set of STX RC brake levers, where someone has brought the main part of the lever to a mirror finish, and you'll see later why I think this is very crucial. Just had the thought that if we're going for this full silver look, then we should probably go all the way. Started looking for a silver replacement, but this is a bit, I don't know, a bit chunky looking. So maybe we can find something else. And I think these are more similar to the original. These are some Diacomp levers. May require us to do some mixing and matching. These won't fit. That's a bummer. Never mind. But what if we combine these two? Not sure. This one is kind of halfway there, so I wonder if without an excessive amount of effort we can get this to be silver. Yep, we're getting there. This screw here is often mistaken as a possibility to switch these levers from short pull to long pull, or vice versa. But that's not what this is for. This is more of a brake force or brake snappiness, I think is more appropriate. A brake snappiness adjuster. This is the low setting, this is the high setting. Usually they are labeled with L and H, but this has been polished off here as well. And this matte surface here, this is how that main body of the lever normally looks. So this has been polished to a mirror finish like the rest. One component that I haven't mentioned yet is the handlebars, where I managed to secure some, which I believe are called mid-school handlebars from probably the 90s. Not sure, I'm not a BMX expert, so you may correct me on this, but they're definitely old school looking or vintage looking. And with all our components now clean and polished, we now just need to get the frame ready for assembly. The frame condition is really great, so my main concern or my main focus here will be to try and remove these dark outlines of the decals as much as possible without further damaging them. So yeah, it's a bit of a walk on a tightrope, but we'll do our best. I like to carefully go over the edges of the decals with the scratch repair paste. The idea here is that we want to eliminate rough edges as much as possible, but obviously that needs to be done very carefully, and we want to avoid scratching into the decals themselves and removing the paint from the colored sections, so really just going over the see-through outlines. You can still make out the color of the grease, so I've seen dirtier. Okay, now that we're done with all the preparations, it's finally time to start putting things back together again and begin the assembly process. And we are doing that by adding a little more color to the frame. If you want to use any of the components that I'm putting on this build for a bike of your own, then check out the video description because all components are listed there. You'll find the links to these parts on our website, and the bike will also be available for sale there. This is the adapter that we're using. We're going to need another Shim adapter to make it fit the stem that we're using. I like the stacked spacers. I think I'd prefer if this was a little bit more flush, so let's play around. We'll swap these. This is looking good. Not sure, I think we may need to try these two little ones at the bottom of the stack. Let's see. I'll switch it up. Yep, we'll keep it like this. These bear trap pedals, they're old school BMX pedals, so good fit. And we'll very much leave this on so we don't get them dirty. Instead of the stock quick release skewers, I want to use these in white. I think we'll add some more subtle color with these blue Jagwire pads. Used them in the past in different colors, in yellow and pink. I think the blue ones will work quite nicely on here. So we know that it can't go down further than this, which means we have a whole lot of C-post standing over, and therefore we're going to cut some off the bottom, probably cut it off just below where it says 26.6. I think it's always good when you can still check that on the seat post. Earlier I promised you 2 bike reveals and ride footage, so as the last of the white components is going on the bike, I want to bring up a comment that I received when I released the sibling build video of the black stump jumper. Someone said they would have loved to see the original thumb shifters on the build, and I gotta say, that's a great idea. Since you last saw this bike, I have mounted a Bottoncino OG chainring, added a purple bottle cage, purple skewers to replace the pink ones, spoke reflectors, some new stickers, and a vintage Specialized saddle with taillight. But now, let's look at what you came here for.